point of view, I can say from the Informatica, majorly we'll be having two components. Okay, one is a server component, another one is a client component. So what do you mean by a server and another one is a client, right? So server part is nothing but a mostly the Informatica administrators will be working on this.
Okay.
This is almost related to the administration part, whereas client
Mm-hmm.
components will be working by the Informatica developers or a production support team members. Okay, so these are the two different designations we'll be having if you're working on the client tools. Okay,
Oh,
if you're
okay.
working on server components, there will be a different designation who they will be looking for the Informatica administrator people. So
Okay.
I will let you know what all the server components will be having and the client. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, our main agenda to develop the objects in Informatica is mapping, right? So what do you mean by first of all a mapping? Mapping is nothing but an where you are going to have the a pictorial presentation of a data flow diagram where you are going to have the your source and some sort of a business logic and your target instance. This pictorial presentation of this data flow diagram we are going to call it as a single mapping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's completely representing the ETL presentation.
Mm-hmm.
ETL stands for extraction, transformation, and then finally the loading. So from
Okay.
where onwards you are extracting the data, okay, and what sort of business logic you are applying to meet the business requirements, and finally to which instance you are loading the data. The
Mm-hmm.
source and target might be vary from project to project perspective, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the logic as well. In some of the projects you may have the sources as databases or flat files or some SAP systems or PeopleSoft or some other things or mainframe files, anything might be there. And even the target also, it depends upon your, it might be Oracle or SQL Server, DB2, Netezza, Teradata, anything might be there, right? It's all depends upon the client interest and you know based upon that we'll be working on the respective source and target instance, and accordingly from each and every product perspective the logic is going to be changed, right? So there will be
Okay.
different business logic from mapping to mapping perspective. So together all these three components we are going to call it as a single mapping, right? Is it clear?
Yeah.
So we are going, our main agenda to work on this Informatica, if you are a part of Informatica developer, is we need to create a mappings, right? So suppose I'm into part of this Informatica client tools. Now I'm going to create a mapping. So if I want to create a mapping, I should have my the source, target, and the logic. So the logic I can easily define under my Informatica Power Center. But what about my source and target tables? Okay, so I need to bring the structure of my source and target tables from the different applications, but not from the Informatica, right? Those might be residing on the database or flat files, it might be anything. Let us assume in our current scenario we are having from the different databases. My source is Oracle and my target is Netezza, let us assume. Okay, so if I'm a developer, I have logged into my Informatica client tools. Now I'm supposed to design a mapping. So first of all, I need to bring the structure of my source table from the Oracle database and structure of my target table from the Netezza database, right? So this is a client, this is Informatica is nothing but a tool, right? So how this tool can directly interact with the databases? It cannot interact, right? Why? Because database understand only SQL language, whereas tool doesn't know the SQL language, right? So how it is establishing a connection between the client tool and the databases,
Mm-hmm.
right? And after making a connection, how it is bringing the data and everything, right? So in between them, there is a mediator called ODBC. ODBC stands for Open Database Connectivity. So we are going to create a ODBC for both the source and target database schemas or users. So obviously my source table will be under some schema on top of my Oracle database, and even my target table will be on one schema on top of my Netezza database. So for each and every schema, you have to create a ODBC connections. right? Once you are done with these ODBC connections, now the client can easily interact with the Oracle and the Netezza database, and it can bring the structure of your the source and target tables into the Informatica client windows. Okay, is it clear? So
Okay.
once this is done, then we can easily design the mapping, right? We are having source, target, and we are going to define the logic in the Informatica Power Center. So once the mapping was designed, once we got a we'll be getting the requirements, right? Once our mapping fulfill the business requirements, then you have to maintain the backup of your mapping, right? So once you click on save, automatically from the client tools, this Informatica mapping is going to be saved into the Informatica level database called repository.
Mm-hmm.
In the bottommost you can able to see a repository. Why we are going to, is also one of the database. It might be on Netezza or Oracle. It's all depends upon the client interest. So why we are going to call specifically a repository? Why won't we call as a Oracle or Netezza? Why we are calling as a repository in the Informatica standards? Why? Because this repository is holding completely Informatica related objects, but not the other things. This schema is specifically designed for holding the Informatica objects. Either it may be mapping or session or workflow or folder, permissions, privileges, everything is going to sitting on top of this repository. So when we are going to define this repository and how we are going to configure. So this repository is being created before the installation of your Informatica. So before the installation of Informatica, you have to create a repository, so that throughout the Informatica installation, you are going to provide the username and password of this repository, so that the Informatica software will treat that particular user as a repository. Okay, is it clear?
Okay.
Any
Yeah.
questions as of now?
No, no, please.
Yeah, yeah. So this repository also, this schema also, we are creating either on Oracle or Netezza, right? Now, my question is how this Informatica objects information is getting saved into the database. It cannot interact, right? In order to import the structure of the tables, we are creating ODBC. But how come the Informatica objects information is getting stored into the repository, right? So
Okay.
how the connection is getting established again. So in between them, in between the Informatica client tools and your repository database, you are going to have a mediator service called a repository service.
Mm-hmm.
This is very one of important service which will play a key role during Informatica development. Okay. So
Okay.
repository service. So this service will helps you to save the objects from Informatica client tool to repository database, and as well as retrieve the objects information from your repository database to the client window. It's a bidirectional kind of activity. Okay. So without this repository service, you cannot work out with Informatica Power Center software.
Okay.
Okay. It should be in active status. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so up to here, we are done with creation of mapping, right? And saving the mapping into the repository. That's it. And the next part is going to be the execution of your mapping, right? So how the mapping is getting executed. So you can directly execute from the Informatica client window itself. Once you click on start the mapping, automatically in the back end, there is one more service will come into the picture, which is an integration service. This service will helps you to perform the ETL process. It will blindly execute the mapping that you have designed. It will not check what kind of logic that you have defined, whether it is as per the requirement or not. It will not at all check. Whatever the mapping that you have presented over there, it will blindly execute that mapping. So whenever you, sorry, yeah,
Sorry, without the help of the repository server,
sorry, can you please come again?
okay. Does it need any help from repository to identify few things, or it just the integration server has all the information to process the mapping?
No, no, no. Even it will take the help from the repository service. Why?
Oh,
Because once you click on execute that mapping, everything, it will just send some sort of communication to repository service as well, like when the mapping was executed, right? Again, that information that needs to store into the repository, right? So if it was failed, why, what is the reason behind that, when it was executed, how much time it took. So everything that is going to be shared the details to your repository service, and that service will put the data into your repository.
Okay.
There will be communication between the repository service and integration service, but the entire execution part will be taken care by your Informatica or integration service.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever you're executing, it will try to hit your select statement on your source database, and it will bring the data into Informatica. It will apply the entire business logic, and then it will put the data into your target tables.
Oh,
Each and every activity will be taken care by this integration service. So without repository service, we cannot do any activity. Without integration service, we cannot perform the mapping execution, or
no.
we cannot perform the ETL process. So these are the two important services that should be every time, that should be active in by 24 hours.
Okay.
Okay. Every time, whenever you are working on Informatica, these two services should be in active status. Otherwise, you cannot work it out.
Mhm.
Okay. Is it clear? So any questions from the architecture
No,
point?
no, I'm good.
Yeah. So that's what here I just briefly mentioned what is a mapping and what are all the components that we'll be having. So one is going to be source data definition, which I mentioned as a source tables, right? And the target definition, which is a target table. And in between the source and target, what sort of logic that you are defining over there as per the business requirement.
No.
Okay, so these are the, I mean, in each and every mapping, you may or may not have the transformation logic, but definitely you should have your source and target tables. Otherwise, your mapping is going to be invalid status.
Uh,
Okay.
Naveen, I have a question on this one, if you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Naveen, okay, I know there is sometimes you have a file or
Yeah.
source system. If there
Yeah.
is no ODBC, how can we connect? Is there any way we can connect to with this Informatica?
If your source is of type file,
Yeah.
for the file you don't require ODBC, right? ODBC is just like for connecting the any type of databases. For the
Okay.
file, we don't require the ODBC. We just required the path of the file and the file name.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Sorry, if the file name is okay, for example, you say it's
Yeah.
Excel, CSV, text file, whatever the file is. File is
Mhm.
defined. If the file is not defined, then how can you do that?
Yeah, obviously your mapping will be failed.
Yeah.
If the file
Right.
are not defined.
And then if not defined means the type of file. Like for example, you have Excel type of file, or it's a CSV type of file, with a text
Yeah.
format file. If the
Yeah.
file were, okay, for example, I'm getting some kind of a B tree file type. That's
That will be unknown format file. Yeah.
yeah, it's unknown format. How can we connect to the Informatica and then develop?
Yeah, without the format of the file, we cannot connect to the Informatica.
Okay.
Either we have to export the data from the unknown format to the required format, and
Okay.
definitely you have to define the format of the file. Even my in my in some servers, I have defined the a file with the .csv format. Okay, but I have forgot to define the file format in the Informatica. Suppose like my file name is some banking transactions .csv. Okay,
Okay.
that is a file name that the client has given, and then they have placed in the server location. But
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, I have missed out to define the format in the Informatica person. I just defined like a banking underscore transactions. I have forgot to define .csv.
Okay.
Still, your mapping will be failed. Why? Because it will search the file name with an extension format. If it
Okay.
doesn't recognize the format, automatically your mapping is going to be failed. Definitely, whatever the file that the client is getting placed in your server location, it should be having the file name with the respective format. Okay.
Okay. Just like a couple of let me clarify what is my expectation about this
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. For me, it's like a go through everything, like all the transformations and a little bit server, and
Yeah.
how can we optimize the mappings if there. That's one thing. Then if there is anything wrong with the server, where how can I, what are the location I can go ahead, I can find, look at the log file, I can find out, okay, this is what the problem is, or something like this. These are the things I am looking overall.
Okay.
No, those are my expectations from this course.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So definitely, I'll be covering all the transformations,
Uh,
and before ending our sessions, we are having sessions on performance tuning, right?
okay.
How to the tune the mapping, to just optimize the performance of those things, right? So we'll be
Mhm.
having a separate sessions on that, and for each and every transformations point of view, I'll be focusing you on some real-time example of which is going to cover the each and every property related to your transformations, and we are going to focus on some advanced concepts as well, like push automation, which is not going to use in each and every project, which I
Okay.
got a chance. So I can explain even those push automation and some sort of advanced concepts as well. I think you can
Okay.
just have a look into the course content from the portal. You'll be getting a clear picture on that.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a little bit administration too, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. So how
Yeah.
to, create the user, okay,
Yeah.
and how to add them, and how to provide the permissions and privileges to the respective users, so everything. And
Okay.
what about the installation part?
Yeah,
Have you
we
done
are.
with the?
Yeah, it's already done. It's on my machine now. I have
Okay,
Informatica. I
okay,
have Informatica virtual machine. It's up and running.
uh-huh, okay.
I think it's a 9.5 or something like this, but does it
Oh,
matter?
no, no, no. There will be no that much changes between 5.9.5, 9.6. Okay.
Okay.
So both are similar versions only. No issues with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, I will tell you exactly. Actually, I think this is a 9, looks like, about Informatica.
Oh,
I
is it?
think this, oh no, sorry, it's 9.5.1.
Okay. Yeah, that's enough. Yep.
Okay,
You'll be
9.5.
feeling the same, touch and feel between 9.5 and 9.6. No other
6.
issues. No other differences you'll be feeling. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, that's all I have to Naveen.
Okay. Yeah.
What time is the best for you, Naveen? It's like, what is your availability? Like, what time do you want to start? Like, those kind of things.
So yeah, my preferred timings is morning 7 a.m. IST.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah. What will be? You are in Canadian timings?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eastern Standard
Okay.
Time. Right? Yeah. It's
Okay.
the
That will
same
be
time, but
9:30 p.m. Right?
yeah, 9:30 p.m. But the problem is sometimes I'm going like with the Ramadan time. I'm going for a fasting, like another 2 weeks only. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I'm coming from prayer, maybe it will come like 9:50, 9:55.
Okay.
Maybe if we can have like at 10 o'clock, is it okay for you or?
No. Actually, I need to go to office by 9:30.
Okay,
So if you finish up the class by 8 or 8:15 max, so that I can go to office by that time.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So just for 2 weeks, right? So I think after 26 you'll be free, and
Yeah, yeah,
accordingly
yeah.
we can plan those things.
Yeah, it's maybe if you want like no 9:50. I will come. Like, I'll try to come like 9:50, 9:55
Okay.
because the time for us the time is changing every day. Every day it goes by 1 minute up. Yesterday's were
Okay.
like 9 o'clock. Today's
Mm-hmm.
9:01.
Okay.
Once you finish the prayer and finish your dinner, then it's going to be approximately it's like a 45-50 minutes. So that's why I say okay, that's
Oh,
fine. Like
okay.
we can have a first couple of weeks is a half an hour 40-minute session. Then after that we
Yeah.
can go from there.
Yeah. Then we
Uh,
can try to take 1 hour session. Yeah.
yeah. It's maybe if you are free on weekends, maybe if you want, we can catch up on some of the stuff if you're okay with that.
Actually,
Otherwise, if you want,
I will not be taking on weekends.
oh no,
On
that's
both.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be
That's okay.
taking the sessions from Monday to Friday only.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah.
No, no, I'm good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, yeah, that's yeah. We can start with that. Let's have like it's Monday means Monday.